We are back on MorningLine. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday. You can join on the air, 737-7587. If you have a question about this upcoming legislative session, a lot of key issues coming up, and we've got a great panel with us this morning. These three individuals do a great job of covering the legislature. With me this morning is Carrie Wade Gervin. She's with the Nashville Scene. Joel Ebert with the Tennessean, and Chris Conti with News Channel 5. Nice to have you on. Thanks, guys. Listen, as we went to the break, we were talking about some of the issues. You already brought up the gas tax, which is going to be a key issue that they're going to discuss. Medical marijuana, is that, going to be something that maybe goes somewhere? It's been brought up in the past. We've seen what's happened here in Nashville where they tried to decriminalize it, and I don't really, frankly, know where that stands now. The police aren't quite sure. But what about medical marijuana? No one's talking about making it legal recreationally like we've seen in places like Denver, Colorado, well, maybe they are. That's not going to happen here. But what about medical marijuana?
I mean, it's definitely going to be talked about. It's already been filed.
Yes, State Senator Steve Dickerson, who represents Nashville, and then Jeremy Faison, Representative Jeremy, have filed legislation to legalize it
for medical
reasons, and have done, did a big press conference. Faison went on a fact-finding mission to Colorado to see and have children with epilepsy that take a tincture of cannabis oil or something to help with their seizures. So I think there's a better chance of it passing this session given the people pushing for it, but it's still going to be a challenge to get through, especially with the religious Baptist, I don't touch a drop of alcohol kind of legislators.
And that's where that comes from. I was wondering about
aren't going to support
the opposition
legalizing a drug.
Well, and think about it. I mean, how hard of a push was it to get wine sales in grocery stores on Sundays? Marijuana is a little bit different.
Sure.
I think
that's true.
It's going to be a tough road to hoe, in my opinion, because I think there's going to be a lot of fighting among Republicans. Even if every Democrat lined up and you got, I don't know, 10 Republicans, 20 Republicans, you still couldn't pass it in the House. So I think it's going to take a lot of conversation in order to get it to change. I could easily see them having that conversation this year and continuing it next year, though.
Yeah, I just wonder what the constituents think. If we had a public referendum on medical marijuana in the state of Tennessee, do you think it would pass?
The polling shows that it would.
I mean, lawmakers, as we all know, they're slave to their constituents, as they should be. So I guess depending on where they're from, but I just don't understand someone wanting to deny a child, an infant, an important medical treatment that could preclude them from taking these awful narcotics that knock them out, and forcing these families to have to move to another state to get treatments that can save their child's life.
Well, we talked to Dr. Steve Dickerson yesterday, asking him a little bit about this, and I said, well, why'd you file it so early? And he said, because the problem last time around was that there wasn't enough discussion on it, is what he feels, is that there wasn't, it got out there, and then it was just kind of met with this resistance because it was marijuana. So his thinking is, let me get this before them as soon as possible. Let me get the discussion going so that people are thinking about this now, so that we can kind of start showing people what this does to maybe make them a little more comfortable with it, because there are a lot of people who aren't comfortable with it. And that is kind of his hope this session, is that maybe this kind of pre-discussion will help move it forward. And he also said that even if it doesn't go forward, that he will kind of keep pushing it until at some point he gets it passed.
Its time will come. I just don't know.
And we're not at the forefront of it either.
That's
there
true.
are 28 other states that already have legalized it for medical uses. So in terms of that, there's already, at least I think maybe on his side, is that he'll be able to show his colleagues, hey, let's look at these other states. We can look at how they've implemented it, some of these other practices that are already in play, and there's not going to be maybe as much uncertainty as there would have been 5, 6, 7 years ago.
I also think that using the argument of this as a tool to combat the opioid epidemic is really smart. I mean, our state is really, hurt by this ongoing epidemic. We are one of the states that is most pained by this in the country. So I think if you can get lawmakers to realize that this is what that issue is all about, to try and combat opioid use, maybe it has a chance.
Yeah, maybe it goes. All right, yeah, and I think that's a key issue, though. I'll be just following that to see. But yeah, you're right. A bunch of other states have already gone that direction. You can look at how things are going there. Some of the other things. What about privatization of the state parks?
The TDEC has filed an RFP for outsourcing.
No, an RFP
is a request for proposals from private companies to tear down and rebuild the hotel at Falls Creek Falls, which would be a 2 years process. The current employees are not guaranteed jobs at the end of that, would be unemployed in the meantime. There was a lot of controversy over that. Also, there's another RFP that has been filed for outsourcing custodial landscape and building maintenance work at all the state universities and state buildings. And there are 3 companies. The whole process has been going on for a year and a half, all in secret. But the names of the companies have leaked, as I reported last week. And one of them is JLL, which has ties to the Haslam administration.
Okay, so conflict of interest potentially along those lines. Is the whole idea behind privatization that it would save taxpayers money? Is that kind of how they're pushing it? Maybe is that the idea?
They hired Kraft CPA to run the numbers. Again, Kraft has ties to the Haslam administration. He's donated to his campaign, and they estimate a $35 million savings a year, but the cost, those numbers don't really reflect, because you have state employees that are now going to be getting less benefits, that are not assured of the jobs, even though the Haslam administration says they will keep their jobs. But if you read the fine print in the RFP, there are all kinds of exceptions.
Right.
And so you're going to end up possibly with people that are state employees now, on unemployment, on Medicaid, and so the money is going to cost. There's different numbers that don't balance each other out.
Is there much support for it, you think, in the legislature? I don't know. You get a sense from the lawmakers?
Democrats are pretty critical of it, but honestly, I mean, there are questions from the Republicans. I don't think enough to say, hey, we're not going to do this, because actually, I don't think it needs legislative approval. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it doesn't need legislative approval. The only thing that could happen is if a legislator stepped in to try to passed a law to kind of stop things from happening, which there's more interest in the Falls Creek Fall area legislators, because it's a rural area and the people that can't get jobs, and less concern about what's happening at UT.
You ever stayed at that hotel in Fall Creek Falls? I know you camp out. Well, I've stayed there. It's cool. I like that place. Let's go to Joe. Joe, good morning.
Good morning, Nick.
Hey, Joe.
You've just been talking about my subject, one of my subjects, contracting out state jobs. And the lady put it very, very aptly that you check back on most of these contracted out jobs. It's one of the friends of somebody that's in state government, starting all the way from Haslam on down. He's been doing this ever since he's been in office. He started with building maintenance. Hit all the state buildings downtown, and that's turned out to be a fiasco. And all you got to do is look forward to this, see what's going on, is look at what's happening at Woodland Hills in Boydo. Although it's metro government, you see how much they've wasted and how much they've stolen and got away with. So that's how your program turned out when you contract it out. It usually go to a friend of somebody in state government. They make a lot of money off of it, and the state employees lose their jobs. So, that's the way we're headed down the road. A lot of these people that do state jobs, when they get out of work, they're either too old or they don't have the education to get a very good job. So we're destroying jobs right and left when we do that. And somebody with a company that's got big fat pocketbooks is making a big profit out of it. So that's kind of the way state government has been running here in the last few years. So that's just one of the things. Just like the gas tax. I mean, they said, well, we're doing it to cover down the road somewhere or another. But we got a big state surplus, but we need to raise the gas tax. So there we go. Again, it's this money going into the coffers, and it seems to be nobody's watching it, where the money's going. I mean, look at, at convention center, they spent all the money on it. That's there again, the metro government, but now they're going to do a $35 million extension to it, or rework it, or whatever they're going to do. So government's wasting money right and left, and the taxpayers are getting caught with it. Reassess a property tax here in Davidson County, so we'll get hit again.
All right, Joe, listen, thank you. What do you guys think in terms of his narrative there, again, about massive government waste? I get the sense this legislature, is penny pinching. I mean, I know they spend money, but there's nowhere near the waste we had decades ago. They've tightened stuff up. I'm just not so sure that there's massive waste going on anymore.
I really don't think that there is. I mean, I'm sure that there is some waste at some level in some departments, but there were so many cuts, especially during the recession, and most of those positions did not come back. So that, I think it's, and plus with all of Haslam's outsourcing that he already has outsourced, the argument for waste is just not there.
Right. I mean, still, the public viewers still kind of see that, or they like to bring it there. They see something they didn't like. Listen, we got to take a quick break. We'll come back and continue our conversation, get some final thoughts from all three of you. We'll take a few more phone calls if you want in our final segment right after this. Stay with us.